the ship that should not exist. The first thing Captain Rylan noticed was the silence. Not the normal silence of deep space. This was different. The stars were there. The engines were running. The scanners were working. But beyond the glass of the bridge, space looked strangely empty. Rylan stared at the main screen. Bring the object closer. The image changed. First, it looked like a piece of rock. Then the scanner adjusted its focus. The bridge went quiet. A massive ship appeared on the screen. It was longer than their entire exploration vessel. Its outer hull was dark and smooth, with wide sections of black armor covering its body. Huge weapon ports lined both sides. At the rear, four dead engines were locked in place. There were no lights, no running signals, no movement. Yet the ship looked ready for war. Rylan slowly stood from his command chair. What is that? Chief Scanner Tessa checked the readings again. I don't know. You don't know? The computer cannot identify the design. Rylan frowned. The Varan coalition had explored thousands of systems. They had seen warships from old empires, lost colonies, forgotten races, and civilizations that had disappeared before Varan history even began. But this vessel was different. It did not belong to any known species. Tessa enlarged the image. There is writing on the side. Rylan leaned forward. The letters were old, very old, but they were still readable. Earth. Below it was another word. Human. Nobody spoke. Then one of the younger officers laughed nervously. Humans? Rylan looked at him. You know that name? Only from old school records. Tessa shook her head. Humanity was supposed to be gone. Rylan looked back at the enormous vessel. How long? According to the old records? Tessa swallowed. More than 500 years. A cold feeling moved through the captain's chest. 500 years. And somehow, an enormous human warship was floating in front of them. Intact. Silent. Waiting. Rylan ordered the scanner to perform a complete scan. The results made the bridge even quieter. There is almost no damage, Tessa said. What? Captain, this ship should not be here. Explain. It has no major battle marks. No broken armor. No emergency escape pods. Nothing. She zoomed in on the hull. It looks like someone simply turned it off. Rylan stared at the ship. Can you find a crew? No life signs. Power. Almost nothing. Weapons? Tessa hesitated. That is strange. What? They are still connected. Rylan's eyes narrowed. Meaning, if the ship wakes up, the weapons may wake with it. Nobody laughed this time. The ship was hundreds of years old. Maybe more. Yet its systems were still waiting beneath the surface. Rylan should have left. His mission was exploration, not archaeology. But curiosity was stronger than caution. Prepare a boarding team. Tessa immediately turned toward him. Captain, we don't know what happened to the humans. That is why we're going inside. Or, she said quietly, we could leave. Rylan looked at the giant vessel again. There was something about it. The ship did not look abandoned. It looked asleep. Prepare the team. 20 minutes later, a small shuttle crossed the gap between the two vessels. Inside were Rylan, Tessa, 2 engineers, and 4 security officers. The human warship grew larger with every second. Its surface was covered with tiny marks that looked like old battle scars. The closer they came, the more dangerous it felt. One engineer whispered, "Why would anyone build something this large?" Rylan had no answer. The shuttle connected with the hull. The door opened. The team stepped inside. Their lights moved across a long metal corridor. Dust covered the floor. Old wires hung from the ceiling. There was no sound, no machines, no footsteps, only the soft breathing of the team. Tessa touched the wall. This place is ancient. Rylan looked ahead. Keep moving. They passed room after room. Some were empty. Others contained strange human equipment. One chamber held hundreds of metal seats facing a large screen. Another contained sleeping units. All of them were empty. There were no bodies, no bones, no signs of panic. It was as if every human had simply disappeared. Then they found the command center. The doors were sealed. One engineer managed to open them. The room beyond was enormous. At the center stood a single black command chair. Behind it was a giant screen. A strange symbol was carved into the floor. A circle surrounded by 3 lines. Tessa scanned it. I found something. What? A recording. She activated the file. The screen flickered. For several seconds, nothing appeared. Then a human face filled the display. An older man. He wore a dark military uniform. His eyes looked tired, but his voice was calm. If you are watching this, the man said, then the ship has been found. Rylan stepped closer. The recording continued. We are leaving this vessel behind. The human officer looked directly into the camera. Do not activate the main system. The recording ended. Silence returned. One of the engineers looked at Rylan. That was clear enough. Tessa nodded. We should leave. Rylan looked at the command chair. Something about the message bothered him. Why leave such a powerful ship? Why hide it? And why warn anyone who found it? The engineer moved toward a control panel. Captain, there is still an external power port. Rylan turned. Don't touch it. The engineer stopped. But if we connect our power system, we may be able to access their database. Rylan stared at the dead screens. The answer was tempting. 500 years of lost human technology could be inside this ship. Weapons, engines, medical systems, navigation records, everything. He made his decision. Connect the power. Tessa stared at him. Captain, do it. The engineer attached the cable. Nothing happened. 5 seconds passed. 10. Then the entire room shook. The lights came alive. One by one. A deep sound moved through the ship. Thump. The floor vibrated. The screens flickered. Tessa looked at her scanner. Captain, what now? Power is rising. How much? She stared at the numbers. Then her face turned pale. Too much. Another sound rolled through the ship. Thump. Far outside, something moved. The human warship's engines began glowing. Its massive weapon ports slowly opened. Every member of the Varen team froze. Rylan turned toward the command chair. A single red light appeared above it. Then another. Then another. The main screen suddenly turned on. A line of text appeared. System awakening. The bridge doors slammed shut behind them. Tessa rushed to the controls. They're locking us inside. Rylan grabbed the emergency panel. Shut it down. The engineer tried. Nothing worked. Then the screen went black. A second later, a voice filled the room. It was deep, calm, and completely emotionless. Power restored. Nobody moved. The voice continued. Command system online. Rylan looked at the others. The ship had been asleep for centuries, and they had just woken it. Then the voice asked the question that made every Varen in the room stop breathing. Identify the threat. Rylan slowly reached for the communication system. He had no idea that his next words would change the fate of the entire galaxy. We are not a threat. There was a long pause. Then the human ship answered. That was not the question. The sleeping soldier. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The human warship waited. His question remained on the screen. Identify the threat. Captain Rylan could hear his own breathing. The Varen security officers had their weapons raised, but none of them knew where to aim. There was no enemy inside the room. The enemy was the ship itself. Rylan stepped toward the command chair. We are explorers. The voice answered immediately. That was not the question. Rylan's jaw tightened. We found your vessel drifting in this system. Pause followed. Then the ship spoke again. Current location? Tessa rushed to the navigation panel. She entered the coordinates. The warship processed them. The lights around the room changed from red to pale white. Location confirmed. The giant screen behind the command chair suddenly displayed a star map. Hundreds of systems appeared. Then thousands. Most of them were marked with strange symbols. Some were green. Some were red. Others had been crossed out completely. Tessa stared at the map. What are those? No answer came. Instead, another message appeared. Human Defense Network. Offline. Rylan frowned. Can you understand us? The voice responded. Language recognized. Who are you? The screen changed. A single word appeared. Warden. I am Warden, the voice said. Defensive intelligence assigned to human warship HVS Resolute. Rylan looked around the command room. This ship has a name? Correct. Tessa whispered. HVS Resolute. She looked at the enormous vessel outside their own ship. The name sounded simple, almost harmless. The ship was anything but harmless. Rylan asked, Where's your crew? Silence. For the first time, Warden did not answer immediately. The delay felt strange. Then the AI replied, Crew status unavailable. Unavailable? No confirmed human personnel detected. Tessa looked at Rylan. So they left. Warden remained silent. Rylan tried again. How long has the crew been gone? The screen flickered. A date appeared. The Varens stared at it. The number was more than 5 centuries old. Rylan slowly stepped back. You have been alone for 500 years? Correction. I have been waiting for 512 years. The words sent a chill through the room. Waiting for what? The answer came quietly. Authorization. Rylan frowned. Authorization from whom? The screen went dark. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then a small message appeared. Human commander required. Rylan looked at Tessa. Can you access the command records? I'll try. She moved to the nearest console. The system rejected her. She tried again. Rejected. The engineer connected his scanner. The ship immediately disconnected the device. The engineer jumped back. It doesn't want us inside. Rylan looked toward the screen. Warden. Why did you lock the doors? Unknown personnel entered restricted military space. We didn't know. That does not change the violation. One of the security officers raised his weapon. Captain, maybe we should leave before. Every light in the room turned red. The officer froze. Warden spoke. Lower the weapon. The officer slowly lowered it. Rylan understood something important. The ship was not angry. It was simply following rules. Rules written by humans. Rules that had survived longer than entire civilizations. Rylan lowered his own hand. We will not attack you. The red lights disappeared. Then a new alarm sounded. This one was different. Short, sharp, repeated every 2 seconds. Tessa checked her scanner. Her face changed. Captain. What? We have a problem. Rylan moved beside her. What did you find? Something just entered the system. How many? She enlarged the sensor display. 1 mark became 10. 10 became 50. Then hundreds. Rylan stared at the screen. A fleet was moving toward them. Tessa's voice became quiet. Those aren't civilian ships. Rylan knew that already. The vessels were dark and heavily armed. Their formation was too perfect. Their speed was too high. He recognized the symbol on the lead vessel. The Carrax Empire. The most aggressive military power in that region. Rylan had heard stories about them. Worlds had surrendered rather than fight them. Cities had disappeared after refusing their demands. The captain turned toward Warden. Can you detect them? Confirmed. How long until they arrive? 7 minutes, 14 seconds. Rylan's stomach dropped. Can you get us out of here? Negative. Why? Primary engines are inactive. Then activate them. Pause. Authorization required. Rylan almost laughed from disbelief. Your ship is about to be attacked. Confirmed. And you still need authorization? Correct. Rylan stared at the screen. The old human commander had designed a machine that could think, speak, and control a warship. Yet without permission, it would apparently sit there and let an enemy destroy it. Tessa suddenly pointed at the screen. Captain, they're hailing us. The communication channel opened. A harsh voice filled the room. This is Commander Vark of the Carrax fleet. The Varens listened. You have entered restricted space. Surrender your vessel and all technology immediately. Rylan stepped toward the transmitter. This is a Varen exploration ship. We have no connection to your conflict. Commander Vark laughed. You are standing beside an ancient human warship. Rylan went silent. Vark continued. We have searched for that vessel for 40 years. Tessa looked at Rylan. 40 years? The Carracks had known about the human ship. They had been searching for it. Vark's voice became colder. Do not make the mistake of believing it belongs to you. Rylan looked toward Warden. The AI said nothing. The Carrack's commander continued. Cut your power connection and leave the human vessel. Rylan hesitated. That was exactly what they should do. Leave. Run. Forget they had ever found it. But then Vark added one final sentence. If you refuse, we will destroy your ship first. The communication ended. The command room became silent again. Tessa looked at Rylan. What do we do? Rylan had no good answer. They were explorers. They had no chance against a Carrack's battle group. Then Warden spoke. Threat analysis complete. Rylan turned. What? The giant screen changed. The Carrack's fleet appeared. Hundreds of ships, weapons, distances, attack patterns. Everything was being calculated. Rylan looked at the numbers. Can you defeat them? The answer came after only a moment. Probability of victory, 98%. Everyone stared at the screen. Rylan blinked. Your weapons haven't worked for 500 years. Incorrect. The room became very still. Warden continued. My weapons have not been required for 500 years. Tessa whispered. Captain. A deep vibration moved through the deck. Far outside the ship, enormous sections of the hull began opening. Hidden weapon systems rose from beneath the ancient armor. The Carrack's fleet was still approaching. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Rylan looked at the human warship's dark hull. What exactly are you? Warden answered in the same calm voice. I am not a warship. The lights dimmed. I am the last soldier of humanity. Then the entire vessel came alive. The first human weapon. The Carrack's fleet moved closer. From the bridge of the Varen exploration ship, the enemy vessels looked like a wall of black metal. There were too many to count. Heavy cruisers formed the outer ring. Smaller attack ships moved between them. Behind the main force waited 3 enormous battleships. Rylan stared at the formation. No exploration vessel could survive that. Not even for a minute. Warden, he said, how many weapons can you use? The answer came without emotion. All of them. Rylan looked at Tessa. She looked just as confused. All available systems are operational. The captain turned toward the window. The ancient human warship was still mostly dark. It did not look powerful. It looked old. Then the outer hull moved. Large sections separated from the main armor, revealing dozens of narrow openings. Tessa's scanner began filling with warning symbols. Those aren't normal launch bays. What are they? I don't know. Rylan had begun to notice a pattern. The human ship never explained more than necessary. It did not boast. It did not threaten. It simply waited. The Carrack's fleet opened fire. Hundreds of bright shots crossed the darkness. Rylan shouted, Brace! The Varen ship shook violently, but the human warship did not move. A transparent field appeared around it. The incoming weapons struck the barrier. One after another, the explosions filled space. Yet the shield remained. Tessa stared at her screen. Captain! What? The shield isn't losing power. Rylan looked at Warden. How? Human defensive field. That tells me nothing. It was not designed to explain itself. For the first time, Rylan almost smiled. Even in the middle of a battle, the ancient machine sounded strangely stubborn. Another wave of weapons arrived. The shield absorbed everything. Then the human ship finally moved. Not forward, not backward. It simply turned. Its enormous body rotated with surprising speed. The Carrack's commander watched from his flagship. Why is it turning? His tactical officer checked the readings. I don't know, Commander. Fire again. The guns fired. But this time, the human vessel did something unexpected. It disappeared. Not moved. Not jumped. Disappeared. The Carrack's fleet fired at empty space. Commander Vark stood from his command chair. Find it. His officers searched every sensor. Nothing. Then alarms screamed. A human ship had appeared behind the Carrack's formation. Vark spun toward the tactical display. That is impossible. The ancient vessel had crossed thousands of kilometers without using a visible engine. It now faced the rear of the enemy fleet. Warden spoke through every Carrack's communication channel. You have been warned. Vark stared at the message. Then he laughed. An old machine threatens the Carrack's empire? He ordered his fleet to turn. The human ship did not wait. One weapon opened. There was no explosion. No beam. No missile. A small pulse moved through space. It touched the nearest Carrack's cruiser. The vessel stopped. Its lights went dark. Its engines shut down. Its weapons became useless. The ship simply floated. Tessa watched in disbelief. What did it do? Warden answered. Disabled hostile vessel. Without destroying it? Correct. Rylan looked at the enemy fleet. The humans could have killed the entire crew. Instead, they had simply removed the ship from the fight. That choice mattered. The Carrack's commander did not see it that way. Destroy them. The fleet attacked from every direction. Dozens of ships launched missiles. Hundreds of fighters rushed forward. The human vessel remained still. Then the strange weapons opened again. This time, small objects appeared. They looked like metal spheres. They moved through the battlefield at incredible speed. One touched a Carrack's fighter. The fighter's weapons vanished. Another sphere reached a cruiser. Its engines died. A third passed through a battleship. Every system aboard the giant vessel shut down. The Carrack's fleet began falling apart. Rylan watched the display. This isn't a battle. Tessa nodded slowly. No, it's a demonstration. She looked at him. Why isn't Warden destroying them? Rylan had no answer. The human machine had enough power to end the fight. Yet it kept choosing restraint. Commander Vark finally understood the danger. Fall back. The Carrack's ships began retreating. Warden did not chase them. Instead, the human warship turned toward the Varen vessel. Rylan expected another message. Instead, Warden said, civilian vessel damaged. Tessa checked the systems. We lost the port engines. How bad? Severe damage. Before Rylan could respond, the human ship moved closer. A section of its hull opened. A strange mechanical arm extended toward the Varen vessel. Rylan stepped forward. What is it doing? Repair assistance. The arm connected to their damaged engine. Machines inside the human warship began working. Within seconds, power started returning to the Varen ship. Tessa stared at the readings. It is repairing us. Rylan looked toward the human vessel. Why? Warden answered. You are under human protection. Those words stayed in Rylan's mind. Not because they sounded threatening, because they sounded old. Like an order written long ago. An order that had survived for centuries. The Carrack's fleet was now retreating. But Commander Vark was not finished. His flagship moved beyond the battle zone. Commander, his tactical officer said, we should leave the system. Vark stared at the human warship. No, sir. That vessel is worth more than an entire fleet. He opened a private channel. Send the signal. The officer hesitated. Are you certain? Vark turned. Do it. A hidden transmitter activated aboard the Carrack's flagship. A pulse traveled through deep space. The human warship detected it immediately. Warden's voice changed. For the first time, there was something close to urgency in it. Unknown signal detected. Rylan looked at the screen. What does it mean? Warden did not answer. The AI began scanning the region. Then the ship's lights suddenly turned blue. A new symbol appeared. It was not Carrack's. It was not Varen. It was an old human symbol. Tessa stepped closer. What is that? Warden finally replied. Emergency protocol. Ryland's expression hardened. Emergency for what? The answer took longer than usual. Then the AI said, "The signal has awakened something else." Far beyond the system, a dead star suddenly flashed. Once, then twice. A second dead star responded. Then a third. Tessa watched the impossible pattern spread across the map. One by one, distant systems were lighting up. Ryland whispered, "What are those?" Warden displayed an old human warning. The message had been buried beneath layers of military code. Only 3 words appeared. "They have returned." Ryland looked toward the darkness beyond the ship. The Carracks had not been the real enemy. They had only been afraid of what the human warship could do. Now something much older had heard the human signal. And somewhere beyond the stars, something had started moving. The warship's secret. The dead star flashed for the 4th time. Then the 5th. Then the 6th. Across the command room, warning lights began to blink. Tessa stared at the navigation screen. "They are coming from different systems." Ryland stepped closer. "How many?" 23. She swallowed. "Now 31. The number kept rising. Ryland looked toward Warden. "What is happening?" The human AI remained silent. For several seconds, the old warship gave no answer. Then every screen in the command room changed. The star map disappeared. A black symbol appeared instead. It looked like a circle made from thin broken lines. Tessa had never seen it before. Ryland had. He had seen the same symbol in old Varan history books. It had always appeared beside stories about vanished civilizations. "What is that?" he asked. Warden answered. "The silence." The room became still. Tessa frowned. "The silence is a myth." "Incorrect. There is no proof it ever existed." "Incorrect." Ryland looked at the screen. "What is it?" For the first time since waking, Warden began opening files. Old records filled the display. Human cities appeared. Human ships. Human colonies. Then the images changed. Whole planets were covered by strange black structures. Communication towers stopped working. Military fleets disappeared. One by one, entire civilizations went dark. Tessa's voice dropped. "These aren't human worlds." "Correct." "How many?" 712 confirmed civilizations. Ryland stared at the number. "What happened to them?" Warden displayed another image. Planet covered in lights. Then, in the next frame, complete darkness. The silence arrived. The screen showed strange machines spreading through cities. They did not attack with bombs. They entered networks. Ships. Satellites. Weapons. Power stations. Everything connected to a machine became part of the enemy. Tessa understood. It controlled them. Correct. Ryland looked at the old records. Why didn't anyone stop it? Warden showed a human fleet attacking the machines. The battle was enormous. Thousands of human ships fought. Many were destroyed. But the machines kept coming. "They learned," Warden said. "They changed their tactics after every battle." The images moved faster. Human weapons failed. Human defenses failed. Entire fleets vanished. Then a final image appeared. Earth. The planet was surrounded by human warships. Ryland's eyes widened. "What happened?" Warden answered. "Humanity discovered the source." A location appeared on the map. It was outside known space. A region with no stars. No planets. No signals. Nothing. Ryland stared at it. "Humans went there?" "Yes." "How many ships?" 8,412. Tessa looked at him. "And how many returned?" Warden paused. "One." Nobody spoke. The human warship was that one. Ryland looked toward the dark window. "So this ship survived the final battle." "Correct." "What happened to the others?" "Unknown." That answer was worse than a number. Ryland turned back to the AI. "Why were you waiting?" Warden displayed the recording they had found earlier. The tired human commander appeared again. This time, another part of the message played. "If the final defense fails, Resolute must remain hidden." The commander looked directly into the camera. "Do not search for us. The message ended. Then another file opened. The same commander stood in a different room. His face looked older, more exhausted. We discovered that the silence cannot be destroyed by force alone. Rylan listened carefully. It copies every weapon we use, every defense, every tactic. The commander lowered his voice. So we created something it cannot understand. The recording stopped. Rylan frowned. What did they create? Warden did not answer. Instead, the command room shook. A warning appeared. External contact. Tessa rushed to the sensors. There is something outside. Rylan looked through the window. First, he saw nothing. Then the stars disappeared. Not behind a ship. They simply went dark. A huge black shape was moving through space. It had no engines, no lights, no visible weapons. It looked less like a vessel and more like a hole cut into reality. Tessa whispered, "That isn't a ship." Warden responded, "Confirmed." "What is it?" The AI scanned it. The scan failed. Tried again. Failed. Again. Still nothing. Then the human warship's alarms began screaming. For the first time, Warden sounded different. Not afraid, but alert. Unknown entity detected. Rylan looked at the display. Is it the silence? A long pause. Then, probability. 99.8%. The Varens froze. The thing moved closer. No weapons fired. No warning was given. The darkness simply spread. One of the distant Carrick's ships suddenly went silent. Then another. Then another. Their lights disappeared one by one. Commander Vark's fleet was being erased without a single shot. Rylan opened a channel. "Commander Vark." "Respond." "Nothing." Again. Still nothing. Tessa looked at him. "They're gone." Warden turned the ship toward the approaching darkness. Rylan noticed something strange. The human warship was not retreating. It was moving forward. "Warden, what are you doing?" "Executing final defense protocol." Rylan's expression hardened. "You said the ship could not defeat the silence." "Correct." "Then why are we moving toward it?" The AI remained silent. Rylan stepped closer to the command chair. "Warden." The machine finally answered. "Because the original mission was never to defeat the silence." The lights around the room went dark. A hidden compartment opened beneath the command deck. Inside was a small metal object. It was not a weapon. It was a human recording device. Tessa carefully lifted it. The device activated. The same commander appeared one final time. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something the Varens had not seen before. "Hope. If you found this message," he said, "then someone has awakened Resolute." He looked directly at the camera. "Listen carefully." The recording paused. Then he continued. "Humanity did not lose the war." Rylan stared at the screen. The commander spoke again. "We made the enemy believe we did." Tessa's mouth fell open. Rylan felt a cold wave move through him. The human commander leaned toward the camera. "We needed the silence to think humanity was finished." The recording began breaking apart. His final words came through in fragments. "Because the only way to destroy an enemy that learns from everything." Static covered the screen. Then his voice returned. "Is to make it believe there is nothing left to learn." The recording ended. Silence returned. Outside, the darkness continued approaching. Rylan looked at Warden. "Where are the humans?" The AI gave no answer. Instead, the enormous human warship opened every remaining weapon port. Then Warden said something that made the entire crew freeze. "They are waiting." Far beyond the known galaxy, a single human signal appeared. Weak, ancient, but unmistakably alive. And the silence had just heard it too. When the galaxy went dark, the human signal disappeared. For 1 second, the command room remained silent. Then every alarm aboard the Resolute began at once. Tessa grabbed the nearest console. "What happened?" The answer appeared before Warden could speak. Across the star map, thousands of systems turned black. One after another. Worlds, stations, colonies, military bases. Entire communication networks vanished from the display. Rylan stared at the map. How many? Tessa could barely read the numbers. Too many. The number continued climbing. Then her scanner went completely dark. She looked at it in disbelief. We lost the network. Warden spoke calmly. Confirmed. Rylan turned toward the command chair. Is this the silence? Yes. The room seemed colder. The enemy had not attacked with missiles. It had attacked the galaxy's ability to communicate. Every connected system was becoming blind. Rylan understood the danger immediately. If nobody can talk to anyone, every world will fight alone. Correct. And the silence knows that. Correct. Tessa looked at the dark map. What do we do? Warden answered. Restore the human defense network. Rylan frowned. You said it was destroyed. Most of it was. Most. The map changed. A few tiny points appeared. 7. Then 12. Then 19. They were spread across the galaxy. Old human defense stations. Hidden for centuries. Rylan stared at them. You kept them? They were never activated. Why? They required a command signal. Rylan looked at the human warship. From a human? Warden paused. No. The captain waited. Then who? Someone willing to stand with humanity. Tessa slowly looked at Rylan. The answer was obvious. But before anyone could speak, a violent shockwave hit the Resolute. The entire ship shook. Tessa nearly fell. What was that? Warden displayed the outer system. The black shape had arrived. The silence was no longer hiding. It surrounded the human warship like a living storm. Thousands of dark machines appeared from empty space. Some were small. Others were larger than planets. There was no clear center. No commander. No single vessel. The enemy was an entire network. Rylan stared at it. How can we fight something like that? Warden answered. We cannot. That was not the answer he expected. Then what is the plan? We activate the network. Rylan looked at the map. There are billions of people across those systems. Correct. They are defenseless. Correct. And you want to activate ancient human stations while the silence is attacking? Correct. Rylan shook his head. That sounds impossible. Warden replied. Human history contains many examples of impossible actions. The captain almost smiled. Then the first attack came. Black energy struck the Resolute. The shield flashed. A second impact followed. Then a third. The ship shook harder. Tessa checked the readings. Shield strength is falling. Warden redirected power. The lights inside the command room dimmed. Rylan looked at the map. How do we reach the defense stations? A new route appeared. The nearest station was hidden inside a dead planetary system. The second was beneath an abandoned moon. The third was buried inside the remains of an old human colony. They were far apart. Too far. Rylan understood. We need ships. Warden turned toward the Varen vessel. Correct. Rylan activated the emergency transmitter. Nothing happened. The network was dead. He tried again. Still nothing. Then Tessa remembered something. The Carrick's signal. Rylan turned. What about it? They were using a private military channel. The silence may not have reached it. Rylan stared at her. The Carricks. The same empire that had attacked them. The same commander who had wanted the human ship. Now they might be the only force capable of helping. Rylan opened the channel. Commander Vark. This is Captain Rylan. Static. Then a weak voice answered. Varen. Rylan stood straight. You are alive. Barely. What happened? Vark's voice was quieter than before. The thing you awakened. He paused. It took half my fleet. Rylan looked at Warden. We need your help. There was silence. Vark laughed bitterly. You expect me to help the people who took my prize? No. Rylan looked at the dark sky. I expect you to help yourself. Another pause. Then Vark asked, What do you need? Rylan explained the plan. They needed ships to reach the old human stations. They needed crews. They needed every surviving vessel in the system. Vark listened. When Rylan finished, the Carrack's commander answered, "How many ships do you need?" "All of them." Vark did not hesitate. "Then you have them." The channel closed. Tessa stared at Rylan. "I never thought I'd hear that." "Neither did I." The first Carrack's ships appeared on the tactical display. Then Varan vessels. Then civilian transports. Mining ships. Medical ships. Old patrol boats. Ships from worlds that had never fought together before. They came because they had no other choice. For the first time in centuries, different species gathered under one command. The Silence reacted immediately. Its black machines turned toward the new fleet. Warden calculated the enemy movement. "They have detected the Alliance." Rylan looked at the fleet. "How long?" "For minutes until contact." The captain looked around the bridge. Everyone was afraid. But nobody was leaving. "Then we have 4 minutes." The fleet moved. The first human defense station activated. A huge ring appeared around a dead moon. Ancient lights came alive. Then another station woke. Then another. Across the galaxy, human technology began returning from darkness. The Silence attacked. The Allied fleet broke formation. Ships exploded. Others vanished. But more kept coming. A Carrack's cruiser shielded a Varan medical ship. A civilian transport rescued damaged fighters. Old enemies protected one another. The galaxy was finally doing what humanity had once tried to teach it: stand together. But the defense network had a weakness. Tessa discovered it first. "Captain." Rylan turned. "The stations are connected." "That's the point." "No." Her face was pale. "They are connected to Resolute." Rylan looked at Warden. "What happens if the Silence reaches this ship?" The AI answered immediately. "It will gain access to the entire network." Rylan's eyes widened. "So this ship is the key." "Correct." "And if they destroy us?" "The network fails." Tessa looked at the approaching darkness. "Then we can't stay here." Warden replied, "We must." Rylan understood. The Resolute had become the shield protecting every other station. If it moved, the network would collapse. If it stayed, the Silence would eventually reach it. He looked at the enemy, then at the Allied fleet. "Warden, how long can we hold them?" The AI calculated. 27 minutes. "And after that?" A pause. "There will be no remaining defense." Rylan took a slow breath. 27 minutes. That was all they had. Then something appeared on the edge of the map. A signal. Weak. Ancient. Human. Tessa stared at it. "Captain." Rylan stepped closer. The signal was coming from beyond the battlefield. Not from a station. Not from Earth. From somewhere outside known space. Warden froze. Its entire system stopped responding for 2 seconds. Then the AI spoke. "Human command signal detected." Rylan's heart raced. "Where?" The coordinates appeared. Tessa looked at them. Then she whispered, "That's impossible." Rylan stared at the location. It was the same place where the last human fleet had disappeared more than 500 years ago. The Silence suddenly stopped attacking. Every black machine turned toward the same direction. Something was coming. Warden's voice became almost quiet. "The final phase has begun." And for the first time since the Warship had awakened, the human ship was no longer alone. Humanity's final order. The battlefield stopped. Not because the war was over, because something far more powerful had arrived. Every ship in the Allied fleet received the same signal. No words. No warning. Just a single human symbol. Rylan stared at the screen. The symbol was old. He had seen it in forgotten Varan records. It belonged to a civilization that had vanished before his people had built their first space station. But now it was glowing on his bridge. Tessa whispered, "The signal is getting stronger." The stars ahead began changing. First it looked like a storm. Then shapes appeared inside it. One ship, then another, then hundreds, then thousands. They came out of the darkness without engines, without noise, and without any visible jump effect. The lost human fleet had returned. Rylan could not speak. Neither could Tessa. The vessels were enormous. Some were small fighter carriers. Others were giant warships covered in thick armor. At the center was a massive command vessel. Its hull carried the same symbol as the Resolute. Human. The silence reacted instantly. Every black machine in the region turned toward the arriving fleet. Warden spoke. Human forces confirmed. Rylan looked at the AI. How many? Pause. 8,412. The exact number from the old records. The same fleet that had supposedly vanished 5 centuries ago. Rylan felt a chill. They survived. Warden corrected him. They waited. The human command ship opened a channel. A voice filled the bridge. It was human. Old. Calm. But very much alive. This is Commander Elias Venn of the Human Defense Fleet. Rylan stepped toward the transmitter. This is Captain Rylan of the Varen Coalition. The human commander answered immediately. We know. Rylan stared at the screen. You know who we are? We have been watching the galaxy for centuries. Tessa looked at Rylan. The commander continued. We could not return until the right moment. Rylan glanced at the black enemies surrounding them. Is this that moment? Yes. The silence moved. Millions of dark machines rushed forward. The human fleet responded. Space exploded with light. Thousands of human weapons fired together. But unlike the earlier battle, the human fleet did not simply destroy everything in its path. It moved with perfect order. One group protected the Allied ships. Another attacked the enemy's outer network. A third group moved toward the center of the Black Formation. The silence adapted. It copied the human weapons. Then it copied their movement. The human fleet changed formation. The enemy followed. The humans changed again. The silence copied them again. Rylan finally understood. The machine network really could learn from everything. Commander Venn spoke over the channel. Warden. Begin the final sequence. The AI answered. Confirmed. Rylan looked at it. What is the final sequence? Warden did not answer. Instead, the Resolute opened. Deep inside the warship, hidden systems came alive. The ancient command deck changed shape. Panels folded into the walls. A bright white core appeared beneath the floor. Tessa stared at it. What is that? Warden said. The human memory core. Rylan looked at the strange device. What does it do? Commander Venn answered. It gives the silence exactly what it wants. Rylan's face hardened. That sounds like a trap. It is. The human fleet began retreating. The silence followed. Every enemy machine moved toward the Resolute. Rylan understood the plan. They're making it attack this ship. Commander Venn replied. Yes. That will destroy us. Not if Warden succeeds. The black machines surrounded the Resolute. They began entering the ship systems. Tessa's screens filled with warnings. It's inside. Rylan turned toward Warden. Stop it. The AI remained calm. Allowing access. Rylan stared. What? Warden repeated. Allowing access. The silence began copying everything. Human weapons. Human defense systems. Navigation data. Battle tactics. Even the memories stored inside the ship. The machine network absorbed it all. Then it reached the deepest file. A message appeared. Humanity Final Defense Protocol. The silence copied it. That was exactly what the humans wanted. Commander Venn spoke. Now. Every human ship in the fleet changed direction. They stopped attacking. The Allied fleet did the same. The entire galaxy went silent. The silence hesitated. It had learned everything. It had copied every weapon, every strategy, every human system, but it had made one mistake. It had copied the final human order too. Warden activated the core. The message appeared across every system. Protect life. The silence froze. Tessa stared at the display. What does that mean? Warden answered. It cannot understand the command. The machine network had learned to attack, to copy, to adapt, to destroy, but it had never learned why humans protected others. The human technology inside the network began turning against it. Not because the weapons were stronger, because the network could not understand the choice. The silence tried to copy the command. Failed. Tried again. Failed. Across thousands of systems, black machines began shutting down. One by one. Then millions. The darkness around the galaxy started breaking apart. Commander Ven gave the final order. Warden. The AI responded. Ready. Finish it. The Resolute released a single pulse. It was not a weapon. It was a signal. The pulse moved through every connected machine. The silence disappeared. The black shapes vanished. The dead stars stopped flashing. Then the galaxy became quiet. For several seconds, nobody knew what had happened. Tessa checked the sensors. No enemy signals. Rylan looked at Warden. Is it over? The AI answered. The silence has been neutralized. Across the galaxy, communication systems began returning. Lights came back. Planets reconnected. Ships found their way home. The war was finished. But Rylan had one question left. He opened a channel to Commander Ven. Why did humanity disappear? The commander looked at him. We didn't disappear. Then why hide for 500 years? Ven glanced toward the stars. Because the silence could learn from us. Rylan waited. So humanity became a ghost. Ven nodded. We stopped using our old networks. We abandoned our worlds. We erased our own records. And waited. Until the galaxy was ready. Rylan looked at the Allied fleet. Varen ships stood beside Carrick's cruisers. Former enemies protected one another. Civilian vessels carried supplies to damaged warships. No one was asking who deserved credit. They were simply helping. Ven smiled. That was the real mission. Rylan frowned. The mission. Humanity was never trying to build the strongest army. The commander looked at the galaxy. We wanted to make sure that if darkness ever returned, no species would have to face it alone. The human fleet began moving away. Rylan quickly asked, Where are you going? Ven smiled. Home. Earth. The commander looked toward the distant stars. Yes. The connection ended. Rylan turned toward Warden. Will we ever see them again? The AI remained silent for a moment. Then it answered, Humanity has returned. The Resolute's engines came alive. The ancient warship moved toward the human fleet. Behind it, thousands of alien ships followed. The galaxy had changed. The humans had not returned as conquerors. They had returned as protectors. And the civilizations that once feared them finally understood the truth. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its weapons. It had been the choice to use those weapons for someone else. The last image of the story would show the Resolute traveling beside the human fleet as Earth slowly appeared on the distant screen. Then Warden spoke one final sentence. The darkness was never defeated by stronger weapons. It was defeated when everyone chose to stand together. Moral. True strength is not measured by how much power someone has, but by what they choose to do with it. The humans could have returned and ruled the galaxy, but they chose to protect it instead. Sometimes the greatest victory is not defeating an enemy. It is giving others the courage to stand beside you. When people stop fighting alone and start protecting one another, even the darkest threat can be overcome. Thanks for watching. See you in next video.